Alright y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's Super Bowl Sunday, so tonight for dinner and watching the game, we're going to be kind of making a homemade pizza and some wings. I'm going to do the wings in a pot, old school style, with a thermometer and my oil. Just showing you some of the ingredients we're going to use today. A lot of store-bought stuff as I like to use. So first things first, I'm going to get started with our Italian sausage. I'm going to fry this up. We're going to get that open. And I'm only going to need about 2 sausage links for the recipe today. I'm going to put the rest back and put them in the fridge, and I'll use them in some other dish in the near future, and or just frying them up to eat kind of bratwurst style. I like Italian sausage that way too. But first things first, get my gloves on. So I'm going to take my sausage links here, take 2 of them out of there. We're going to go to our cutting board. The rest I'm just going to go ahead and bag up, as I said, put it back in the fridge. Again, we won't need that much of it. But we're going to start by frying off our sausage. I'm doing 2 different pizzas tonight. We're doing one with pepperoni and one with Italian sausage. Both are going to have onion and green pepper and some black olives in them. And then I also do have a cheese blend that I did myself, and that's going to be 6 or 7 different kinds of cheeses. I know it sounds a little crazy, but me being from Wisconsin, I like the cheese. So we got provolone in here, we got Munster, we have Monterey Jack, we have a smoked fresh mozzarella, and we also have a regular dry or a low moisture mozzarella and some Parmesan. So we're going to put all that in there, a little bit of Asiago as well. And that I all shredded up earlier and blended myself. So I'm going to just set that aside, make sure we have it out of the fridge. That way when we do build the pizza itself, it'll be a little better at melting, and it won't take as long in the oven. Now, when we're doing a keto pizza like we are tonight, we're using a low-carb tortilla to make the crust, and we're also using this low-carb roasted garlic Yo Mama's tomato sauce. This is one of the best ones on the market for low sugar and very little carbs per serving. Beyond that, we'll use some Parmesan and Romano to top it with. So in the meantime, get my oil hot for the wings tonight. I'm going to have to do them in 2 batches, so we're going to get to that point here shortly. But I do want to stress, very important, that when you do the wings, tonight I'm using wingettes. I'm not a big fan of drumsticks. But we want to make sure that when we take them out of the package, that they are super, super dry. The reason being, there's 2 reasons for that. One, when we put them in the hot oil, we don't want so much moisture on them that it starts popping and ends up burning us. At the same time, without all that extra moisture in it as well, it'll also help it crisp up a lot better. So we're going to pat those dry. Alright, as I was saying, we're going to make sure these wings are as dry as possible. So I'm just taking some paper towel after I rinsed them off, and I'm going to get all that moisture off there. Before we start frying them, I am going to probably go back and dry them off just one more time. Again, the less moisture the better. So I'm just going to pat these dry now, set them aside, and then like I said, we'll get started with the pizza. Beyond that, we are using, for the wings tonight, I'm doing a garlic herb butter. So I'm using the Herbes de Provence, which is a herb blend. It's kind of a French, it's got thyme, marjoram. It's got, let's see, what do we all got here? Basil, marjoram, fennel, lavender. So it'll be a good, nice flavor for the wings. And then we're going to toss those in butter with garlic salt. And we're also going to have a dipping sauce. It's going to be like a Hidden Valley packet ranch, but I doctor it up a little bit as always. And then we're also going to add some blue cheese crumbles to that tonight to eat. So, back to what we're doing over here for the pizza. We can get our Italian sausage going. Right now I got the heat at like a medium. So you want to take your sausage and you want to just score down the side of it and pull off all this casing, because we're not going to want that. And we're going to just do like a large crumble on the Italian sausage today. So again, get all that casing off. And we're going to put these in our pan. Don't really need any oil because there's going to be a lot of fat in the sausage itself. So we just kind of want to bust it up a little bit. And while that's frying up, I also want to pay attention to my oil. I do have the thermometer in there. We want to get it to about a 360 to 375. We're probably going to have to do the wings in 2 separate batches. Normally I have a bigger pot with much more oil, but today we're just going to use a small guy so that I can get them done in 2 rounds. And again, we're going to cook off our sausage. Alright, so again, frying up our sausage here. Now I like nice big chunks of Italian sausage on my pizza. Some people might crumble it up or even chop it up afterwards. That's really not my kind of thing. I like the big bite of the chunky Italian sausage. Now, the Italian sausage I'm using is Johnsonville. It's a Wisconsin ingredient. They make some of the best, I would say probably the best bratwurst out there if you're not getting them from an actual butcher shop. But they also have a couple different lines of sausages. They have the Italian sausage, and lately they've been trying a bunch of different, like, kind of Southwest style with like queso and stuff like that. And all of them tend to be really, really good. So, now that we got that busted up real good, about the size that I want it, we're going to let it get good and brown. Now again, medium heat, doesn't need to be crazy. But every so often, give it a saute to kind of flip it around. And once that is done, we'll pull it off the heat and just set it aside till we start building the pizzas. I'm going to use the same pan to toast off the crust, and I'll show you how to do that as well in just a bit. Alright, well that's cooking up and frying up. I'm going to get a couple of my other ingredients ready for the pizza. So I do have a mandolin, and this is kind of a pro style mandolin. I don't like the chintzy ones. They end up breaking or the blade gets dull really fast. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use that instead of my chef knife for julienne because I want nice and thin slices. I'm going to do that with the onions and the green pepper. And on our pizza, we don't want super chunky onion or green pepper. Then it doesn't cook, and you're biting into crunchy vegetables on your pizza, and to me, it's just not appetizing. So, we're going to get our onion ready. And then the green pepper as well. I'm going to set aside half this onion. I probably don't even need a whole nother half. But let's demonstrate how that is done while I'm checking on my Italian sausage over here. It's looking about ready, so I'm going to probably pull it off and let the heat just finish on its own. Let it kind of rest there. So again, bringing our mandolin over to the cutting board. Now you want to be very careful. Mandolins do come with a device that helps you hold whatever you're trying to slice so you don't cut your finger. Again, I'm pretty old school. I've been cutting and doing that for a long time, so it doesn't really scare me. But I still want to be conscious because, don't get me wrong, you'll still cut your finger. So I want to test it once or twice, just checking to see what the thickness of that onion is going to be. And that's a little too thick for what we need today, so I'm just going to turn it up just a touch. Try to get some nice onion shaving in there. So again, real quickly, just get this job done. And let's see how much onion that gives us. Yeah, that's going to be plenty for tonight. So I'm going to get that onion. I'm going to set it aside over here with my black olives. And we're going to get to the green pepper now. And same kind of concept. I want it nice and thin. But we're going to put this at an angle so that we get nice slices out of it. Again, just be patient with it. I might be going a lot quicker than you would. Not a big deal. It's really worth saving your finger to not have to do it super fast. Let's see how much we got there. And that should be enough green pepper. So we're going to pull this aside. I'm just going to toss this in the sink so we'll wash it later. Get my green pepper nice and thin. Alright, so we're going to put that back over here. And we're going to set this stuff aside till we get the crust done, and then we'll start building our pizzas. In the meantime, I'm going to check my oil over here for the wings. And we're still at about, let's see here. We're at about 250 degrees, so we got some time yet. In the meantime, I'm going to set aside my sausage as well, so that way we can use that pan again to make the crust. Trusty old paper plates. So just get all that on the paper plate there. Let it rest. It doesn't matter if it gets cold because we're gonna actually warm it up anyway. I'm also gonna get my pepperoni ready on the same plate. That way we're all ready to go. And again, I like to use decent quality products, so we do have the Natural Choice Uncured Pepperoni by Hormel. And if you can get stuff in the deli aisle, sometimes that's a bit better. Alright, so I'm just going to give my pan a wipe, get some of that Italian sausage oil and stuff out of the pan. Alright there. Now, when we're doing the crust, we're going to toast it up, set it aside. We don't want to cook it very fast. We don't want to burn it. And we also don't want it to be like crunchy crispy because it's going to bake in the oven as well. So, first things first, take a little bit of oil right out of my fry here. You don't need much, just a little bit. We're going to take our tortilla shell in about a nice hot pan there. Go ahead and set it in there. Again, we're trying to do this slow, we're not trying to rush it. So, once I get the oil on one side, I always like to flip it right away. That way it disperses the oil evenly on both sides. That way one side's not getting crispier and absorbing the oil, and then both sides will be able to toast up real nice. So again, just give it some time. It might take a couple minutes to get each one done. But kind of gauge as you're going as to, you know, how crispy you want your crust. And don't forget, it will be in the oven, so we don't want to cook it too hard. Alright y'all, so the crust for our pizza is coming along here. This is kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for just a light brown. I'm going to do that on both sides with each tortilla. It does take a little bit of time. You're looking at probably about 3 minutes or so for each of the crusts. And again, once we get those all nice and toasty, we're just going to set them aside. I was checking my oil for frying our wings. It's getting a little hot, so I'm just going to turn it down just a touch because we're going to want to make sure these pizzas are built before we start the frying of the wings. Now, me personally, I like just a raw, clean wing. I'm not a big fan of breaded wings. I also like them cooked probably a little harder, as they say, beyond you know, what most people will. I like it to be kind of chewy, you know, rather than, you know, super juicy. But again, to each their own. That's whatever their preference is. So let's check the other side of that. That's looking pretty good. So I'm going to set this one aside. I got one more to toast up here. And we're going to do it the same way. Get a little bit of oil from my fry. Just kind of put it in the pan. Set my tortilla in there. And with the pan being a little hotter than it was when I first started the first one, this one's probably going to go just a little quicker. But again, we want to get some of that oil on both sides. And just let it go till we get that golden brown look. And all my pizza ingredients are ready to rock and roll. The only thing I got to do is open my jar of tomato sauce, and then we can start building the pizzas. Just let this go a little longer. Alright, so as I was saying, it's getting nice and golden brown. We just want to get a little toasty on this side. After that, I'm going to move my fry oil to this burner. It's a larger burner. It'll make it, you know, more even heat-wise. You also want to be using a thick gauge pot when you're doing fry. The thin gauge pots will end up burning things too quick, and the oil will get way hotter than you really want it to. So once that's done, we're going to kill the heat there. I'm going to take this tortilla and or pizza crust and set it on my sheet tray here. Now, I do have a round pizza sheet tray, but in order to get both mine and my wife's pizza on the same one, we're going to put it on our large sheet tray that I make cookies with normally. Let it cool down. You don't want it super hot, but here's where we're going to start building them. So first things first, we want to get our jar open here. And this jar is being rather difficult, so the old trick, just hit it a couple times. You don't want to hit it too hard because then it's going to break. Man, that's a rough one. Let me get my gloves off here. Maybe that'll help. There we go. All right. I'm going to go ahead and return one of my gloves on here. So this pizza sauce, as I was saying, is the best I found on the market that is low carb, very little sugar. There are a couple other brands out there, Rouse and stuff like that. You know what? I've tried them all. This is the best one in my opinion. So we're going to get ourselves a little ladle. It'll help us spread out our pizza better. Our pizza sauce. And in the meantime, I'm just going to kind of get that in a bowl so that we can ladle it in a lot easier. And I did shake it up so it's nice and mixed up. And we're going to start building our pizzas. So I like to use a lot of sauce. Some people don't. Again, to each their own. One ladle on this is probably enough, but I'm going to see how it looks. And I want to get that edge to edge. I also don't like a whole lot of crust around the edge of my pizza. So I like to get the sauce as far to the sides as I can. And don't worry about making a mess on your sheet tray. I mean, granted, it's going to, burn probably in the oven, but we're going to have some cheese that's going to flow over it and stuff as well. But we'll get it off there with a thin spatula. And that way we can cut it, or we can cut it right inside the pan as it is. All right. Sauce good and spread. We'll set that aside. I like to add, first and foremost, a layer of the cheese. We want to do the same thing as we did with the sauce. We want to spread it out nice and evenly, but we also want to get it as close to the edge as we can. Now these are going to be kind of thick pizzas, so I'm recommending cooking them in an oven at probably like 325, not 350, because otherwise it might get too burnt. And always keep an eye, I put it on like one of the top racks. Always keep an eye on the bottom though, pull it out, check it out. As it's baking as well, I'll turn the sheet tray a couple times. That way everything cooks as nice and evenly. Alright, first layer of cheese down. And I'm going to start building the meats. So one, again, we're going to do with Italian sausage. I do like a lot of it, but you don't have to go crazy, or you could do a little bit if you want. I'm going to add some more cheese to this as well, so that'll help kind of seal it in there. And for my wife's pizza, we're going to do pepperoni tonight. So I just like to get them nice and even. I also don't like to have them sticking together when I put it on there, because then it'll not cook evenly. And that's one of the keys to these pizzas, especially with the crust being the tortilla shell. You want to make sure it's nice and even. It's one thing if you're using an actual pizza dough. It's another thing if you're using something as thin as the tortilla shell. Alright, pepperoni's on. Set that aside. Now I'm going to come over and grab my vegetables for the pizza. Alright. So I do like some peppers and onions. And this I go a little lighter on. I don't go crazy with it. Do peppers on this one. And my wife doesn't like green pepper as much, so we're not going to put as much on her. Next we're going to do some onion. Onion on the pepperoni. Alright. I'm going to add my other bit of cheese now. That way we can add the black olives right to the top. Now this layer of cheese we don't want to go as crazy with, so we're just going to kind of sprinkle it on there. You want those veggies and stuff showing through so that they do get cooked. If they're in between some stuff and can't cook quick enough, they'll be kind of crunchy, which isn't horrible, but I mean, you kind of want it, you know, cooked through. Alright, black olives. And again, that's another one I like a lot of, so I put a bunch on. Being conscious that she still needs some. Alright. Looking good. Fabulous. And then lastly, after I get my black olives, just another little smidge of cheese. I'm a huge fan of cheese, obviously, so I use it in almost everything I cook. Alright. Those are ready to go, so we're going to get our oven on again. We're going to go to probably about a 345, 340. We don't want to go too crazy with the heat again because we don't want it to burn. Let me see the smell. Alright, so I was just giving a sniff to my herbs. It's pretty good flavor. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these pizzas aside so we can focus on the wings. I'm just going to bring them to my cutting board over this way just to let them rest for a minute. And for the wings, because we are frying them, we don't want them greasy, so I'm going to get some paper towel down on a sheet tray. It's just a small cookie sheet. And that way we can let some of the oil, after we fry them, drip off there. Again, we're going to bring the heat back to our bigger burner over here. And right now we're at about 340 degrees. Want to get it a little hotter, so I'm going to go up just a little bit on the heat, kind of like a medium-high heat on your widest burner. We're going to pay attention to that. Now, as I'm frying my wings, I want to get them one more little pass with the paper towel. I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I'm telling you, less moisture, the better. So I'm just going to get as much as I can off of there right now. They are pretty dry, I can tell, so we're not too worried about it. As they kind of rest here too, some of that moisture does seep out, so. Alright, I'm going to set this over this way for when we get them out of the oil. We don't want to necessarily add any seasoning now. It's just going to end up burning off, or actually it won't stick to it and it'll be on the bottom of your oil. So we'll season them up as we do after by tossing them in a bowl. We're going to do plain ones as well as the garlic herb butter. So first things first on that, I want to get my butter into a little bowl here. That way I can get it melting. I don't need a ton. I probably used about 3 tablespoons there. It might be more than I need. And it's not all going to stick to it. So I'm just going to pop this in the microwave for about 30 seconds. That should give us what we need for the melt on that. Keeping an eye on the oil there. Now we're at about a 345, so it's creeping up there. We'll get it nice and hot for us. Again, on that you're looking at about a 360 to 375, because again, as soon as you add these cold items to it, it's going to drop that really, really low. That's also part of the reason why I'm doing this in 2 batches. Might even be 3, looking at how many wings I have here. But you want it all evenly cooked, so I'm just going to let that rest in the microwave, let it finish melting, and then I will get my mixing bowl out, so it's awesome. And I'm going to do the plain ones first, just with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then the second round, or the second batch I should say, that I'll actually put in with the garlic herb butter. So, let's get our temp up here. It's creeping up. Almost at 360. Let's count how many wings we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Alright. So 30 wings. We're going to try to do 2 batches of 15. And if it does start crowding, I will end up doing them in smaller batches. Right now, I'm going to try to get them all in at once. They're probably going to take, oh God, a solid 10 to 12 minutes to fry. Again, I like them fried a little further than most people. We will check them though as we pull them out and mix them up. This is a nice little handy tool. In the kitchen, in professional kitchens, it's known as a spider. I'm not actually sure what the real name of it is, but it's just one of those tools that you use to get your items out of the fry oil. It's also used for when you do like dumplings and things like that in like a pot of boiling water. It just helps get all that out there by draining the water off or oil as you're taking it out. All right, temp is where we want it. I'm going to just turn the heat down just a notch so it doesn't get too crazy. And I'm going to start adding my wings. I do use this to add the wings as well. As you saw me do earlier, I want to get a little bit of oil on it. And hopefully that way it won't stick. Let's get our wings in the oil slowly. You don't want to go crazy with it. And it does look like we'll be able to do them in the 2 batches like I was thinking. But again, they're going to cook pretty quick. All that boiling you want to be conscious of as well. That's why you do not fill your pot too high with oil. But I do want to get the rest in there. Kind of give them a little bit of a nudge just to make sure that they're not sticking together. And we will come back when we're about halfway through. I'll check them, pull them up. I also have a thermometer digital that I can use to check the temperature of each wing. You want them definitely at about a 165 temperature-wise. I prefer them a little further again, so I don't know exactly what temp we'll get them to. But I'll show you the look of the texture that I'm looking for when they're just about there. Alright y'all, so I was a little off earlier about the cook time on these wings. I didn't take into account that I'm using such a small pot with a very little bit of oil. So for the liking that I like my wings, it's probably going to be closer to 20-25 minutes. So what I did is I took the first round out when they were about halfway done, and I added the second half. So we're going to cook that till about halfway done as well. And then I should be able to add them all together in the pot so that I can cook them all evenly and get them to the consistency that I want. Alright, so wings are all incorporated in the same pot, first half, second half. Knocking them out here. Also, because it's such a small pot, it really drops the oil temperature down a lot when you add those wings. So that's part of the reason why it's taken a bit longer than I really had anticipated. But right now we're at about 300 degrees and rising. Once we get to that, 360 mark, 375 mark, we're going to take a look and see how they're looking. But that should be about the texture that I'm looking for. So you also want to be conscious every so often to take some of the bottom ones and kind of flip them over and get some of those top ones down underneath. Nice even cooking. At the same time, if I had a bigger pot or a bigger fryer, I wouldn't necessarily need to do all that. But again, we are doing home cooking here, so no professional deep fryer for me. And honestly, I prefer to do it this way anyway. I feel like I have better control over how quickly the food is cooking or frying. And also I can get it to that texture that I'm looking for. Alright, so wings are looking good. Getting close to that consistency I want. That probably like semi-hard cook. Nice fried, crispy skin. And that way that meat is juicy, but a little bit chewier. Like I said, that's my personal preference. Now we're going to let this come back up to temp at that 365 range. But in the meantime, I'm going to take my built pizzas over here. And we're going to go ahead and toss those in our oven. Again, at about 340 degrees. And that's going to go for about 8 to 10 minutes. I'll give the wings some time to kind of finish up. But in the meantime, I'm going to get my dipping sauce mixed. So again, I take the Hidden Valley Ranch packets. It does call for the mayonnaise as well as buttermilk. But I do tend to add a little bit more of the seasoning in it along with some cracked pepper. I also add a little bit more mayo than I do buttermilk to get a thicker consistency. Now, this is a really, really good blue cheese here. We're going to add that to our ranch. We don't need a lot. That's looking about good. That's looking to be about 3-4 tablespoons, somewhere in there, to about a cup of ranch. All right, I'm just going to mix that together. And as it sits there, it's going to pick up some of the flavors from the blue cheese. But again, my wife doesn't care for that so much, so I got some regular ranch pulled to the side. Get my blue cheese back in the refrigerator. So one more time, those pizzas take about 8 to 10 minutes. By that time, our wings should be good and fried. Again, you still want to keep the consistency of, making sure you're mixing it, get it all good and fried all over. Let's check our temp. We're still at about 330, almost 340. So as I assumed, once these pizzas are done, those wings should be pretty close as well. One thing I didn't mention earlier that I do add generally to my built pizzas is I'll just sprinkle it with just a touch of garlic salt as well as crushed red pepper. Both me and my wife like that on our pizzas. It gives it some more flavor. That's the only thing about that sauce that I talked about earlier. It is the best on the market for keto or low carb, but it does need a little bit of help. So I add that garlic salt just to bring it a little further. Alright, we'll let these again come back up to temp. In the meantime, waiting on our pizzas to be done. Once we get our pizzas out, we'll go ahead and slice them up. And then the wings should be ready, so we'll pull those out, toss them in our seasoning, and we're ready to eat. Alright, y'all, those are coming out real nice and crispy. Again, just roll them over so we get a nice even cook. But look at that. Nice and crispy skin. You want some of that bone to start turning a little white, in my opinion. Then you know they're really getting that texture that I like. But these are almost there. Yeah, alright. So wings are looking great there. Pizza's been in about 8 to 10 minutes, as I said. Those look to be about ready. Let's set that aside over here. And again, I'm just going to cut the pizza right in the pan. It'll just make it a little easier for cleanup and whatnot. I'm going to kill the heat on my wings there. And now I know it's a round pizza, but I prefer square slices, so that's how I'm going to slice these up for us tonight. And that crust has nice little crispiness on the bottom, but then it'll be nice and tender on the top. Again, a lot of ingredients, very thick pizza, so you want to be conscious of everything cooking and melting all the cheese. And again, these are probably a bit more abundantly cheesy than most people would do, but again, I love cheese, so. Alright, so now that those are cut, we're just going to let them sit here. I'm going to use a spatula to get it off because that cheese has got it kind of sticking. Might not be a bad idea as well to spray your pan with some pan spray. And we're going to get our wings out here. Again, like I was saying, we're going to slowly, little by little, we're going to take them out, let them drain, and then put them on a sheet tray with some paper towel. That'll get any of that excess grease off. And again, I did use peanut oil for this. I prefer peanut oil when frying. It just gives it so much better flavor. Alright, got all the wings out of there. Just going to set my oil to the back so it can cool down. Best way, in my opinion, to dispose of that is if you can, a restaurant or someone that would take it, throw it after it cools down in a milk jug or something, take it to that restaurant, dump it in their oil bin, or worst case scenario, throw it in the trash, but I'm not a huge fan of that. Alright, so now that those are good and less greasy, I should say. So I'm going to take my wife's portion first. Again, there were about 30 wings, so let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, Actually, that should be good for her. And for hers, I am going to add just a touch of raw butter and some salt and pepper. That's going to help it all kind of, you know, bind to the actual wing. Alright, a little salt. We're going to take her wings, kind of roll them in the pan. Let that butter melt. And again, that'll help it all kind of stick together. Alright, hers look good and seasoned. I'm going to come over this way and we're going to go ahead and throw them on our plate. Nice big pile of wings there. Now I'm going to get to seasoning mine. Kind of the same way. I'll get them in the mixing bowl here. And I'm going to add my clarified butter. And I'm going to add a little more than I did to my wife's because I want that nice buttery flavor. And as I was saying earlier, a little bit of my herb mixture. You don't need a ton. You're just trying to season them. You're not trying to coat them. And after I toss them a little bit, I can look at them again and see if it needs a little more. And my form of salt that I'm using is the garlic salt. And again, you can kind of season them as you eat them if you need a little more salt and pepper. That clarified butter is going to roll over those wings really nicely. As you can see, it's coating them really good. And as I'm doing that, I'm noticing that a little bit of the seasoning is not really sticking to it. And that's probably because of my excess of butter, but no worries there. We can get plenty on there. Alright. Give them one more toss here, and then I'll plate them up on my plate. And because I do have the excess butter in there, I'm actually going to use that spider device or tool that I had earlier, and that's going to help us get them out of there without it getting too much of the butter in there. So let's see, set that aside, and I'll just grab them right out of the bowl like so, and give them another couple tosses. Get that good flavor on there. Again, everyone knows I'm a huge fan of the butter. To each their own, right? Alright. Get my wings on a plate here. Look how good and crispy those are. Just how I like them. It might be a bit much to some, but I'm going to drizzle a little bit of that butter over it. Alright, set that aside to be clean. Go ahead and get my spatula and get our pizza here as well. I'll start with my wife's pizza over here. Just kind of jab at it. You don't want to rip the pizza up. If you notice it is a little too uncut, not a big deal there either. You can always roll right over it and do it again. But that cheese does get crusty. I'm going to turn mine around, do the same, loosen it up from the pan. Nothing like crispy, crunchy cheese. I know a lot of people are a fan of that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and plate my wife's up first here. She does got that big pile of wings, so I'm just going to throw a couple slices of pizza on it. We can always come back for more. And as I'm seeing, that cheese is kind of remelted, so again, I'm just going to cut along a little bit. That way we separate them. Looking good. Alright. Go ahead and put that over here on my wife's plate. Alright. Super Bowl Sunday, pizza and wings. Not too difficult. Again, doctoring up some store-bought products. It's going to make everything taste so much better. But that'll be it for us, y'all. Now you all enjoy the game. Well, we have our dinner.